So welcome everybody. Appreciate you joining today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of my company, my role, and what I'm really going to focus on is the aspects around responsible AI and innovation. So as you mentioned, I'm the head of AI products here at ETS. So that means I'm focusing on how we're using AI to develop our products. So generate content, make adaptive environments, scoring responses, and interpreting a lot of data. And so I'll kind of walk through some examples of that. But before I get into that, I want to say a little bit more about what my company is and so where we're coming from. So for those who may not be familiar with ETS, we are a global education and talent solutions company. So we conduct 50 million assessments every year. So we have tons of data around students, learners, adults. We have over 200 patents. And we have over 12,000 publications. So we are very research front and center. We do a lot of science as part of like how we're advancing measurement and assessment. We are in 9,000 locations around the globe, including 200 countries. So this includes test centers, home offices, where we're delivering a lot of these assessments. We've been around for over 78 years. And we are known for some global standards. So both in the top right. So for those of you in the United States, if you ever hear something around the nation's report card, so how are students faring in like 4th, 8th, and 12th grades in terms of their math skills or their science skills or their English skills, we help to we develop and administer that kind of program. And we also do that globally. So for PISA and PIAC, this does this across 80 countries for both students and adults. How are educational programs around the world progressing and helping to improve opportunities for students, adults, and helping to kind of grow that education globally? Now, we're also known for some of our product brands. So TOEFL and TOEIC, those are both about English language abilities. TOEFL helping students to be able to go and take international education at English-speaking institutions, and TOEIC helping people to get jobs at English-speaking companies that might be international companies. The GRE, a lot of people might know about helping to get people into higher education, and practice is about teacher licensures, helping to make sure that we have qualified teachers that are prepared to be in that classroom, delivering the education to all of our growing students. And then lastly, PSI. This is mostly focused around workforce licensure, credentials, certifications, all the way from like cosmetology and tattooing up to drone pilots. There's a wide range of how do we know that people have the right skills to kind of go into these professions, especially if there's certain risks involved. So we're helping to make sure they have those skills. ETS is a global nonprofit, and so we're very outcome driven. And over here on the left, our brand promise, what we're trying to make sure that we're accomplishing in the world, is to advance the science of measurement to power human progress. What that means is we have that research up front, that's the science part, and what we're really trying to focus on is how do we help people to demonstrate what they know, what they can do to give them opportunities. So powering human progress is let's make sure we make people's skills and talents and knowledge visible to give them options in different ways and demonstrate that ability. So we do that by promoting skill proficiency. How do we know that good people who are good at leadership or critical thinking, things like that? What are they good at? How do they demonstrate that? How do we help to kind of progress that over time? Empowering upward mobility. So how do you get more opportunities? Maybe there's things that you don't have an opportunity to show in your day-to-day job. How do we help you to demonstrate that so that you can kind of do more and accomplish more than you might be thinking of on your own? And then unlocking opportunities for all. Demonstrating those skills, making them visible, really allow other people to see, oh, hey, this person's really talented, they've got great skills, let's kind of pull them in. So it's enabling those opportunities and really empowering the people. We are very focused on AI. We've been doing AI since the early 2000s, quote, before it was cool. So we've been always investing in that and a lot of like what we call natural language processing. How do we help to take in students' work? How do we help to score it? And so we have had a long history in this space. And one of the things that we've consistently kind of pushed on is the responsible use of AI. And so more recently, 2024, shortly after ChatGPT 3 kind of came out, we made sure that we published responsible use in AI and assessment. So for our field of assessment and measurement, what are the ways that we use AI and how do we do so responsibly? We also recently in January launched the Center for Responsible AI in Learning and Assessment. So this is one of our research institute centers that's really kind of focusing on digging in about how do we do this responsibly while still accomplishing those learning and assessment goals. And then in general, the kinds of things that we're focusing here on, how do we generate content and items for a global organization? How do you make sure you're factoring in people from different backgrounds, different cultures? You can't use idioms like, it's raining cats and dogs, because somebody from another country might not understand what that means. So how do we do that kind of thing responsibly? Adaptive assessment. How do we make sure that we're giving everybody the equal chance to show what they can do? How do we keep that fair and valid and reliable? So it's really critical that we're doing that so responsibly. And then remote proctoring and security. With some of these high stakes assessments, do you get into this job? Do you have a good enough score? There's incentive for people to kind of to cheat or try to do things that they shouldn't. And so we get deep fakes, people trying to come on like a camera like this, trying to hide their identity. How do we detect those? How do we keep this fair and valid and honest for those people who are trying to kind of get those new opportunities? And so we have to keep pace with that AI. And I'll talk a little bit more about this on this next slide. So with this huge focus on AI, we have to kind of keep ourselves to like the standards that still existed before AI. So we've always had the ETS standards for assessment. We audit our own products and our own programs to make sure that we are constantly kind of delivering on that brand promise that I mentioned. And so even with AI, we've kind of instantiated governance and compliance. So we have not only the original assessment standards, but now we also have AI standards that we're trying to keep to. And so we have an overall organization-wide AI strategy, and then how we handle that and how we keep that safe and reliable. We also have multiple committees and working groups. We work with our legal, our compliance office, the security, as I mentioned, our technology divisions, research, product development. All of these people come together in different work streams to kind of make sure that we're comparing those best strategies. Or if we're thinking about launching a new product, working with our compliance office before that happens instead of afterwards. And so we're really trying to figure out how do we drive augmentation. So not necessarily automating humans' jobs, but helping them to do their jobs better. So we have other groups who are trying to come through, look at our different business units, our different divisions, and figure out how do we change the processes so that we don't have as many opportunities for human error, not to replace humans, but to make those processes better and deliver more customer value with the same kind of organization that we have now. And lastly, AI changes so fast. Every probably month we have some kind of new release, new tool, something like that. How do you keep up with that? Well, some people are, or at least different parts of it, and some people aren't. And so we're having to make sure that we are prepared for that. So how do we keep our data protected when AI creates new vulnerabilities? So if you've heard about the mythos from Anthropic, it can detect a lot of vulnerabilities in technology. How do we make sure we're staying ahead of that with all of the important, sensitive personal information that we have on people? Keep that protected. So we have to stay up with that latest technology. As I mentioned, the deep fakes. How do we keep making sure that we're detecting that the person who is testing right now is the person we think it is? And so we have to make sure that we're keeping up with how sophisticated the world gets along the way. And so in addition to all the stuff I mentioned about our company from the NAEP PIAC, we have also been conducting the ETS Human Progress Report. So this is the third year, 2026 is the third year. The data was collected last fall, and it was from around 18 countries around the world. Now you can see kind of on the map the countries that were selected. We have some high income, some middle income countries, according to the WEF, the World Economic Forum framework. And this has totaled about 32,000 respondents. I'm going to share some of the insights that we got from that in just a second. All of the people that we talked to were adults. And we got at least 1,000 respondents per country. And so as you can tell, some of those countries might have more than 1,000. And so this year, we oversampled a little bit in the United States. Okay, so I want to talk about some insights that relate to AI. So what's actually changing with AI? Well, when we did the Human Progress Report, 52% of all of those global respondents predict that their work will involve AI within 2 years. Now we're in an AI summit right now, so probably we think that that's maybe 100% of the people who are on this call. But the people who surveyed are across all walks of life. So they might be construction workers, servers, they could be in like technology or healthcare. But half the people on the planet are expecting to have AI be a part of their work within the next 2 years. So that's by 2028, 2027, actually, by the fall. That's soon. 60% of these global respondents feel pressure to adopt AI tools before they're ready. So it might be that your company says, hey, we have these new tools, make sure to use them. Or teachers feel this pressure a lot when they're sitting like, I don't know how to use AI, I don't know how to incorporate it into my classroom, but I feel compelled to because I got to prepare my students, but then I'm worried about how it uses. So they don't feel ready, but they still got to figure out ways of adopting it. And that kind of anxiety and that kind of uncomfortableness kind of sits over a lot of people these days. And if you're in the chat, I'd love to hear if you also are feeling those. So if you have a way of like doing a thumbs up or yes, I feel the same way, would love to see that in the chat. 65% of global respondents say they use AI because they need to stay competitive, not to get ahead and not to just do work. But if I'm not using AI and the person next to me is, then maybe I'm not as competitive, or they're producing more than me. So I've got to stay up to date on AI because I want to stay competitive in my field and make sure I still have like a longer term career and preparing for that. There's a lot of pressure around that. 69% of global respondents say they have no clear picture of what the next generation of jobs will look like. So that's in about 10 years. What will the new jobs look like? If AI is changing my job today or my job next year, what is that going to look like in 10 years? And if I don't know what that's going to look like, how do I prepare for that? How do I prepare for the unknown? What do I need to kind of grow? What do I need to do to kind of like make myself future ready? That unknown is also very concerning for a lot of people in the workforce. And I think it kind of comes up in conversations that you'll have around AI pretty frequently. 77% of respondents say they are proactively building diverse skills to protect their careers. So not just being deep in one, but also making sure that you have like a broad set of skills. Now with AI, it's helping people to kind of go beyond. It has a very broad general knowledge. So now you can kind of get into other skills, or you can help to kind of consolidate or look for connections across different areas. So these broad, diverse skills help people to kind of say, well, where is AI appropriate? I can't just focus on one spot. So how do I know if I kind of use AI to help me on this edge, is that still relevant or not? And how do I kind of leverage my human skills to do more, go beyond what an AI can do? So I probably need to make sure that I have that repertoire of skills ready to go to keep advancing in my career. And lastly, 84% of respondents say that upskilling or reskilling is a necessity to compete in today's job market. Now, before AI, 5 years ago, upskilling and reskilling was a differentiator. That's how you stood out. That's how people were like, oh, that person's a rock star. That person's like got all this knowledge bringing to it. Now it's viewed as this is necessary just to compete. The number of people who are applying for jobs like is seems to be crazy. So how do I make sure that I can at least stand out and be competitive with other people? I got to do that by upskilling, getting more skills, getting a more diverse background, and bring that to the table as part of what I can offer for a future job. Again, love to see comments in the chat if you have thoughts on that. How do you feel about reskilling? What kind of skills, if you are reskilling, if you are upskilling, where do you see that kind of need for yourself? Or have you seen colleagues do that? Feel free to share those in the chat because I think that's coming up a lot as well. So I heard in the conversation that was happening right before I started, we're looking at what are the challenges or what are some potential fears in AI. And so I think one of the hard things is for those people who have not necessarily started using AI, how do you build trust for it? And it's not really possible to build trust for something that you don't become familiar with or use to some extent. So one of the key things about building trust for AI and knowing what it can and can't do is using it. Now it can be small, but you got to kind of start playing with it and using it and feeling the edges. And as you do that, you'll be able to kind of build your own confidence in terms of knowing what it can do well and what it can't do well. And that's how you end up building trust for certain parts of AI. So use of AI is a prerequisite for trusting AI. So when you start to use it, maybe you're using it for like generating content. It's really important to kind of come back and question it. So like if I'm developing AI content, did it give me the correct information or did it hallucinate something? Start in the area kind of where you are familiar, because if you start in an area where you're unfamiliar, you won't know if it was correct or incorrect information because it probably looks reasonable. I mean, literally people have written reports at companies to share out publicly and then later found out, oh, some of that information was hallucinated or the references that were included weren't real. Because they were kind of extending out a little bit beyond what they already knew. So make sure that you're doing that and asking those questions. And then also, when you're receiving work, how much of this work is from human versus an AI? Now, we're in the education field, so this comes up a lot for teachers when they're trying to figure out, I'm giving an assignment, I may require them to use AI, but how much of that is AI versus how much of that is not? And even in my own company, when we're helping and trying to automate and improve the way that we're communicating and like providing updates for things, is that update coming like generated by AI or is that generated by the employees themselves? Like, so we're using that a lot. We want to encourage it, but we also want to make sure we're giving credit where the work came from, so that we know how that come about and know where to ask more questions. Similarly, if AI is taking action for you, did it do what I wanted it to do? So you could just ask it for content and did it do that well? Did it evaluate the things appropriately? So if you're providing content and asking it to help critique, if you're asking it to help generate things, did it understand what you were asking for? Did it do the things that you were expecting? So making sure you're not taking that at face value. And then lastly on this slide, responsible AI. What information does this thing have access to? Now, with things like Claude, they have like a desktop utility called Cowork, which can write to your folders. It can create new folders. It can change files. I used it to change all the file names for all of the photos on my desktop. But what I didn't do is I didn't let it have access to other folders. Be careful like where the breadth of which you can do. For example, I actually just heard about an article this week where somebody accidentally wiped out all the data for their company because they were just trying to clean up unused tables in their database schema. And so you have to be very careful how you're limiting that AI use and what it has access to. And particularly for us, we have a lot of sensitive information on people's assessments, their names, kind of where they live, what their scores are on assessments. And so how do we make sure we're protecting that information? That's partly why we have such a big emphasis around responsible AI, is that we have kind of a lot of accountability for ourselves in terms of how we use that and be careful with access. So I've seen some really interesting examples in product organizations recently around AI. And so this image was created by AI, and you will see that there are some specific parts on this figure where you can see where we had to add text boxes over it. Because one of the things that AI is not good at is visuals. So asking it, trying to prompt it and trying to see, can it make a flowchart and help to kind of figure out how these things fit together? It's got limitations. And so this is something that I'm aware of, but I leave it in here too as part of an example for you to kind of see, like, I know it has limitations, but it's not going to necessarily impact the point that I want to make here. And so in a product organization, one of the things that I've kind of seen is you have all these different functions. So on the screen, we're representing a whole bunch of different functions about how maybe different divisions in a company work together to kind of produce an overall ed tech platform, so that e-learning platform up there. So you might have aspects of like tech support, what's not working, how do we feed that in? Learning analytics, how are students progressing through this platform? How do we help to improve it? We have to generate the content that goes into that. So you have all these functions kind of moving together. And as of like 3-4 years ago, these were all humans. So you might have some automated processes, but these are all humans working together, trying to pass information from one side of the org to the other, making sure that everybody has that relevant information. Well, now with AI, some of these boxes themselves may now be AI. So our tech support, customer support, sometimes you often call in now, and that is now some kind of chatbot or bot. So while there's still some way to like escalate to a human, a lot of these functions are now becoming taken over by AI, or at least partially so. So now we have not only just human to human interaction, but now we have human to AI interaction inside the company, much less from customers outside. But how do you now make sure that you are either giving that AI the right information or the AI is servicing the right information to you? And then also there might be boxes that don't currently exist that now will exist because of AI. So one of the things that we're looking at now is like, if you have a system that's working like this, how can you use AIs to help monitor and make sure that all of these arrows are actually functioning appropriately? And so I've seen some really cool examples from at least a lot of startup companies or younger companies where they're placing AI bots to kind of automatically feed things and feed information. So one example is they in this customer success box in the bottom right, they're talking with a potential client to kind of onboard a new solution for them. They have a great conversation. They talk about, what do we need this product to do? What are the expectations? Kind of like what do they want the experience to look like? And if they record that conversation, so they get consent for this, but they record that conversation now can feed all the way over into the curriculum development. Oh, well, the client said they want this thing, so we can already inform this curriculum development. And then the experience that the client wants, we can also use it to inform the content creation. What is the voice? What is the sound? What is the user experience like in terms of like that feel? It can also then feed into like the tech support. How do we want that kind of to feel for these people? Well, the same thing can also go for tech support. When you're getting calls in, when you're seeing problems, how do you automatically surface all those problems and the necessary fixes up into the e-learning platform, or the people who are the IT technical support who are trying to figure out, how do we fix this? How do we make this better? How do we adjust the content, make it easier, more difficult, more challenging? All of those systems now have an easier way of surfacing problems and making recommendations to kind of fix it. So that's really interesting there to kind of see now that you have like the AIification of organizations, and it should help to a lot of communication, but at the same time, it's a totally new way of keeping orgs connected. And so there's still a lot of growing pains that kind of happen there. And so I want to go over one quick example here. So one of the things, so one of the things that we are working on, so how do we do responsible scaling for measurement, designing an assessment for someone or for a client? And so one of the things that we have to look at is like, well, what are the skills that we're measuring? How do we define that? And so actually for one of those is AI literacy. Do you and your company know when someone is AI literate or not? What is your definition of being literate? Is it just knowing how to prompt ChatGPT? Is it knowing, like, being responsible what data to put into ChatGPT or not? What makes somebody or establishes someone as being AI literate? Well, first, so for us, you need a skills framework. Define the skills that you're trying to measure, and then know kind of basically like what makes somebody good or bad at that specific skill. And then what is this assessment goal? How long do you want to be like a 5-minute thing? Are you like, okay, I just need a rough estimate, kind of like, are they good or bad? Or is this a risk or not? Or is like, I want a full credential. Like I want this person to say, yes, there's no problem here. They can work on all of our database systems. They can have access to everything because I trust them due to how solid their knowledge is. So you got to kind of define what those assessment goals are. So for us, we're in that kind of high stakes assessment. And so one of the things, if we're going to make really important decisions on like giving somebody a license to do something or a certification to do something, or credential, then when we generate content using AI, what we don't do is then just deliver that content and assume that it's good. So we at ETS make sure that we have human reviews. So if you're going to generate the content and an assessment, we have key steps along the way. This is human in the loop. I saw that come up in the chat earlier, but keeping a human in the loop for us is critical to make sure that we are keeping to our fairness guidelines, our ethical guidelines, and making sure that we have a valid assessment. We're actually measuring the thing that we want, and so that we're not kind of misrepresenting anything. So this is an example for us of how we're doing responsible AI, and we're having humans still be in that loop before we actually administer it out to users and teachers and all the test takers. So I'll kind of end there, but when I want to kind of step through all the way from our theoretical examples of AI and being responsible to a specific example about where we are keeping a human in the loop for us as an educational assessment and measurement organization.